Welcome to Unhinged Magi! We're back. You know what's awesome? Things going up in price. But you want to know what's even better than that? Companies tell you when they're actually going to go up in price.
Yeah, actually coming out and admitting it.
Wow.
Straight out of the gun.
Not just, they're snap calling. They're saying, yep, we're going up.
They're not just sneakily raising prices.
Exactly. They're not doing any shenanigans. What the hell is up with that?
So yeah, we are talking about something specific here, guys. We're talking about this. The Wizards of the Coast have decided that they're going to do an 11% increase in prices.
Oh my gosh, it's a money grab.
It is for sure a money grab, and they're evil, and we're evil, and aren't you evil, and I hate you, and
exactly.
I hate them. And
I hate you.
There's just hate everywhere.
You hate me. Oh, sorry.
So yeah, there is 11% increases coming for Hasbro products.
Yay! No, that's not good.
Nowhere in this article do they say the I word.
Nope, they did not. It's a vile word. But they did tell us why they're increasing their rates. Goods and transportation, manufacturing have increased, which totally makes sense. But why have they increased? We don't know.
Well, apparently they're just going to pretend like there's just for mysterious reasons that all those things went up. They're just going to acknowledge that they went up and then say what they have to do as a result.
Exactly.
So they're just going to skirt that entire issue.
They're just going to pass the costs onto you, which makes sense for any business. So I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong for that.
They're avoiding the topic, basically.
Yes.
Which actually, I'd probably do the same thing, honestly. If I was in their shoes, I would probably just like, hey, let's not get political. Let's just state prices are going up. Here's why, and then they are.
And then they are. Ta-da!
But you guys should definitely have been expecting it, actually.
Yeah, actually. If you've been watching anything about prices going up, everything is actually going up, and it's going up because of inflation. We have no problem saying the word.
Yep, inflation. The big dirty word, inflation.
Yes.
That we've actually been talking about for quite a while, like even before it really took off.
Yes.
Like even back on my Edwin the Magic Engineer channel, which I need to make some videos for on that channel. I know some of you guys have been asking. But I had many videos talking about the printing of money, QE programs, the oversupply of currency, which really that's where inflation comes from, you guys. Like if you want to understand inflation of prices, you have to understand that an increase of money supply relative to the amount of consumption of money, things to buy, it's the amount of money versus the amount of stuff. When the amount of money gets bigger, that's really where inflation comes from. Yeah. It's just that it takes time for the money to get printed and then make it into the economy. Yep. And it's not until it makes it into the economy that you see and feel the inflation. You just hear about it years beforehand.
Yes, exactly. So right now we're seeing the inflation come in from 3 years ago. That's the inflation in that we're hitting now. Soon we'll be getting the next wave and the next wave after that, because we've had several years of let's just print everything to freaking oblivion.
And yeah, you guys, there's some time bombs out there that are like sitting in bank vaults, because when banks went through crises in recent decades, they printed up enormous amounts of money, and a lot of that is being held on balance sheets and in investments and in the bond market and such. But let me tell you, it's like a nuclear warhead that could go off at some point. When the money that they created to re-liquidate themselves starts coming off those balance sheets and enters the market, then all that inflation from the dot-com bust and the 2008 bust and all those Fed balance sheet increases and others, when that comes flooding into the market, if it ever does, then you think you know inflation now? You haven't seen anything if and when that happens.
Well, I think they're going to blockade that, but
I hope they blockade it, because it'll be like a nuke going off if they don't.
They will. That's not the issue. They do have, however, the scheduled inflationary pushes that are coming, and there's no way to stop them. Now, you might hear in the government that they've put up some blockades for the printing of Biden's current plan of agenda. And I'm not getting into politics. I'm just saying these are actual scheduled waves of inflation that are coming, and there is nothing that's going to stop it.
Yeah, I think the reason why we're seeing the hit more immediate is previously the money that was being created was going into financial assets in the banking system, and it was staying in the banking system. Yes. A lot of the creation now these days is going directly to the consumer because they're doing stimulus packages where people get checks and they're helping out businesses and they're buying up homes, and that's raising the price of homes in neighborhoods like BlackRock and other investment firms are buying up entire neighborhoods. That's why we're starting to see and feel the inflation, because instead of all this printed money just going to financial markets, it's been coming into more local economies. And so you're seeing and feeling it more now.
Yes. And that's only going to get worse for the next few years. And so it makes sense. You see it even in companies like fast food chains. They're actually also increasing their profit margin, not profit margins, but their costs to battle it. Because as money goes up, they need to pay their employees more money, so the inflation goes higher. So they have to actually pay their employees so they can buy stuff, you know? And then you're going to start seeing it in the restaurants. The restaurants are going to have to make their things more expensive. Because right now, fast food is kind of almost balanced with current restaurant standards. Restaurants are a little more hesitant to raise their prices, but they're coming.
There are some markets where like you really can't swing up and down in prices. There are some markets where if you ever allow prices to go up or down, you really create a problem for yourself. Like I know rental markets are that way. I know several people that own rental properties, either commercial or residential. And one thing is, if you ever allow rent to like go down, you really like put yourself in a hard situation. And there's landlords that would rather see a space stay vacant for a few years than lower their prices, because they create a whole other different host of problems for themselves if they lower prices for rent. Point is that not everything can adjust.
Because I did live in an apartment complex and it had a giant crack in the wall. And so I said, hey, there's a giant crack in the wall. You guys you got to fix that since you want to put me here. And they said, well, we'll reduce your rent if you stay here. And I said, okay, can I put duct tape up there? They said, okay. So I put duct tape up there.
There you go. Problem solved. So you guys, it's important to know that the number that is always quoted is called the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. And that's supposed to be a very fair and balanced government, like so third party kind of, right, viewpoint of inflation that all of us are feeling. It's supposed to track the inflation of the average American consumer.
I wouldn't consider it third party.
Well, that's how we're supposed to see it.
I know.
But it's literally not. But
let's not consider it for third party. We can't do that. It's not third party.
Correct. It is not third party.
Okay, go ahead.
And then the reason why it's not third party is because the government came up with the CPI, and then they basically tagged a lot of their programs to the CPI. So like Social Security and such, like all these expenses of the government go up with the CPI. So they have a stated reason to understate it, because things get a lot more expensive for them if CPI actually goes a lot higher. But here's the thing. You guys all need to be aware that this actually exists. So this website you're looking at. I'll move us down here so we're not blocking anything. This website is the Consumer Price Index, and it's at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And what I want you guys to see on this page is that there was a 1940 revision, a 53, a 64, a 1978, more improvements, 1978 and 87, then 1987 CPI, the fifth one, then 87 and 1998, then 1998 again, 1998 and 2018, 2018 and 2019. So they keep changing how they do the CPI. And we've told you the reason, because if the government lets the CPI reflect reality, then as real actual expenses get higher, their bills go up.
That's right.
What the federal government budget has to go to goes up, and they don't want that to happen.
No.
So they keep finding all these ways to understate the inflation and then to claim that things didn't get more expensive so they can actually have a better chance at meeting their budgets. At which point you should be saying, Edwin, how do you know that they're understating their inflation?
I don't believe Edwin. He sucks.
Edwin does suck, but here's how we know that this is correct. This website is called Shadow Stats.
Yes.
And Shadow Stats is made by this lovely person named John Williams, who actually, there's a paywall here to get more information, but this part is free. What John Williams does is he actually does the exact same calculations that the government did in like the 1980s. He didn't go to the newer math, the newer models. He just stuck with the old ways.
Yeah.
So you're basically comparing apples to apples, and he shows it. And what you see here on these charts, and let's be very explicit about them, the red line you see on the bottom there is what the government reports for the CPI. The blue line is what actual CPI is, or at least closer to, at least using their 1980s method of our 1990 base, they're saying here, of CPI. And what you see as the prices are going up and down, it actually is, it's always understating the entire time. It's always lower than it should be. So it's not just a fig Newton of Edwin's imagination.
Yeah, fig Newton.
And now if you want to like get a sense of like how the CPI gets understated, you can get to articles like this. Like, let's look at one thing like housing. So how does the BLS calculate inflation for owner-occupied housing? That means people like us that actually own your house. They have a mortgage, right? It completely ignores issues about the sale price of houses and prevailing mortgage rates. So forget house prices, forget mortgage rates. Why would you want to know that?
Yeah, exactly.
And instead, it imputes a rental value. So what the BLS does is they ignore house prices, they come up with their own funny ways of calculating rent, and then they say, we're now going to look at rent. We're not going to look at house prices.
Because if you look at house prices, that makes sense.
Yeah, just comparing house prices from one year to the next, right? That would be valid, but they're not going to do that.
No.
So they say, we're just going to assume everybody, all you need is a place to live. So we're just going to say renting, not housing, right? Yep. But see, renting is a problem because if you rent, all the money you pay goes into a black hole. It's gone. If you have a home, then the mortgage payment is you saving your own money. You're paying down your own debt, effectively. And so the government, just assuming that just switches over, is basically the government removing your ability to save your own money through a mortgage and paying down a house. But this is the kind of thing they do, you guys. It's called substitution. It's called hedonics. There's a whole thing about it there, what the CPI actually does and why it's wrong.
Yes, and I mean, if you actually go by rental, then you can actually lower that actual price and cost average pretty easily, right?
Yeah.
Because we have across the board of certain areas and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it keeps the actual number down.
Well, especially when there's actual government programs that prevent rentals from going up. There's rent control that will happen in some areas where the government comes in and says, you evil landlord, we don't care that you're paying more for the land and for your insurance and your mortgage and all that. We're not going to let you raise the rent on the people living there. And that doesn't happen with house prices. They don't have that same level of control and manipulation over house prices.
That's right. And that's all because they can do property taxes, but that's considered irrelevant. And
they also do things where, like, at one point, like, the meat that was in the metric used to be like grade A steak. Then it went to like grade C steak, and now it's like chicken or something, or like hot dogs. I don't know. The point is, they change the asset class into something else so they can understate the inflation. Yep. So you guys, you need to know that this exists. You need to know that you're being lied to, and you have been for decades.
A long time. For a while. But yeah, so, you know, knowledge is power. Knowledge is something that everybody, I think, needs. Yep.
So going all the way back full circle, why did Wizards of the Coast raise their prices? The answer is inflation.
Yes.
And the inflation came from all the macroeconomic things going on in the United States and around the world that they're not wanting to acknowledge in this article, but that's where it actually all comes from.
That's why the goods, you have to pay more employees because the prices are going up. You got to pay for more oil to burn the cars, the coal fuels, everything.
Yep.
Everything is going up. Food's going to go up. There's going to be some fun times with food ahead.
And one more quick note before we end this video. If you ever hear people talking about inflation going down, I want you guys to have a good, clear understanding of what that means. That does not mean prices are going to go down.
Right.
It means they're not going to go up as fast. That's a very big thing because inflation is how much worse do they get every year. If, say, inflation is really bad for a while, prices go up, and then inflation goes to zero, and it stays at 0% for a long time, those prices didn't come down. They just stopped going up.
Now, talking about deflation, how would we actually have deflation where it actually goes down?
Deflation has to happen happens when the money supply begins to shrink relative to the amount of stuff. So compared to money, there's less money and relatively a growing amount of stuff is when deflation happens. And in deflation, all you want to hold the currency. Instead of getting rid of it, you want to hold it.
Yeah.
And so the people that win during inflationary times are the people that have the stuff, not money.
Right.
And the people who win during deflationary times are the people that have money, not stuff.
Right. And so, how many times have we been in a deflationary state?
Well, there was a bad deflation around the Great Depression, for sure. But the American economy actually had a lot of stability for around like 100 years. We actually would move between inflation and deflation. And then central banking came in with the stated goal of keeping less economy crashes and keeping our money stable. And then ever since the Federal Reserve came into existence, money has just gone straight inflation almost entirely since, with the exception of the Great Depression where it went through a deflationary time.
Yeah. So when do you think the next deflationary time would be? Ever?
Oh, I'm sure someday. It may not happen in our lives. Who knows? But it'll probably be following a massive explosion of inflation. Then we'll probably go into a deflationary time, most likely. Yeah.
So
that's a whole different topic, though. That's a deep hole to go down.
It is.
But anyways, so there you guys go. Inflation, Wizards of the Coast. This is where it really comes from. We just want to help you guys be educated and have your heads on straight about it.
Yep. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.